Well, Bill, it's remote episode 17.
Excellent. Okay.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. So we are having a Skype conversation. Other web platforms are available. Uh, yeah, like I've been doing all day. We've been having this kind of weird virtual day. Lucy's been having a remote physio session this evening upstairs. She had a remote personal training session this morning. I'm having doing our podcast remotely. I've had a kind of virtual hangout with some of my mates. I've been on the phone with various people through the day. It's sort of kind of finding my feet.
I
Yeah.
don't.
What about you?
Max had his Joe Wicks workout session at 9 in the morning.
We were
With
there. Mate, that guy, he had something like 8 million views of it.
he's going to get some serious female attention, isn't he? Unbelievable. And then at lunch, we were like, oh, what do we do with Max? So I set up the iPad, plugged it into our big telly in the living room, set up the video conferencing call to my brother and his son with the same, and they just played in front of each other on the telly while we made lunch. It was so weird. It was like a portal into their living room. Times
It's
are
like the
changing,
next
Phil.
next best thing to parenting, isn't it? Like,
It's just it's all very unnerving. I don't know how you feel, but I'm out of my study. I'm losing the video background room game here, aren't I? Yours looks very epic, and you dissed mine already off camera quite aggressively.
well,
But there's like
there is this whole power play going on. I've had some Skypes with some potential tenants, one of our buildings, and it's a bit of a power play. And the backdrop's really important. All these penthouse apartments and potted plants and sort of, Japanese sensei trainers walking around in the
You're,
background.
you're so right. I feel like I'm coming in with an old set of PE shoes and I come into a meeting and we were talking with the director of an interiors company today and he just angled his camera around and you saw his balcony in the background and blue sky and then this
I mean,
this
you're a designer and your light bulbs don't have any lampshades on them. I mean, what
Well,
is that?
depending on how long this Skype calling session and how long this London lockdown happens, you're going to witness a transformation in the background. So anyone that's watching, subscribe on our YouTube channel and watch all the furniture's arrived, Bill, all the shelves. Um,
Mm.
I had a little predicament. I ordered some stuff on B&Q on Sunday, and then they locked down everything on Monday, and I was allowed to pick it up. Boris has said hardware stores are still open. I go to this massive B&Q. I have to park on one side of the car park. They ring me, give me a time slot, and they all have their masks on. They, I park my car. They run over with their trolley. They run away. Then I put all the stuff in the car, drive off, and they run back and get the trolley and disinfect the trolley. So bizarre. It's
That's
so
intense.
it's so
So,
surreal.
so should we talk? I mean, we did one a few days ago. Today's the 25th, Wednesday the 25th. I think it's worth saying that because everyone's
Mhm.
attitudes are going to change a lot as this goes on. I mean, speaking for myself, what am I feeling like? I've had a rather lovely day. The sun has been out. On my lunch break, I go and sit in the garden with my two boys, and we had a picnic on a rug. And it's like there are no cars, like there are no people. It's calm and peaceful, and actually, this is quite nice. And then it comes back to me. Oh my goodness! That a friend has died from corona, and we're gonna really feel the economic impact of it, and that kind of huge sadness sort of hangs over us. Um, and then you sort of forget about it again and think, oh, this is nice. I could just go and have carbonara with the family, and that's what's unsettling, isn't it? That sort of macro fear and the domestic sort of comfort.
I've never had such an arc of emotions in a day. For example, I've been in this room all day, and then I took the dog for a walk, and 15 minutes away from my house, there's a lake in the middle of nowhere. I'm all on my own. It's lovely. I text one of my colleagues to say, "Oh, look at this," and he's like, "I'm in a studio flat in the middle of London, and I haven't left since last Thursday." And I was like, Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Just a real sense of like, you're right, it's blue sky outside, but I should be really panicking. You know, Monday, beautiful day. I was in a great mood. Sit down and watch the Boris talk, and it's like, oh Jesus, like it's getting really serious.
Which
But
one?
not.
That was
That
the
was the big one on
8 p.m.
Monday.
address to the nation. Yeah. Um,
How
yeah.
do you think he's handling this? Because do you think he's doing a good job? Oh, should we not talk about it on the
Well,
podcast?
I don't want to get too political. I think, irrespective of your views on Boris, every decision his government make now in real time is going to get scrutinized hugely over the next 20 and 30 years. Like, what could have been done differently? What could have been done better? What was the impact and of certain things happening at a particular time? Um, it's an intense time for it. And you know, I understand some of the decisions they're making. I mean, there have been a bit few about turns. I actually, you know, I thought he would be better at this uh, state of the nation stuff. This is a kind of critical moment of our nation, and I'm not sure about that he's carrying it. But I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? What do you
Interesting.
think?
I did well. I mean, I think he's doing in terms of not panicking everyone and trying to subtly taper this curve. I don't know how you can police London. I mean, in any more intensity without really knuckling down. I guess it's
But
the grey
also,
areas.
I
That's what
mean,
people don't like. Yeah.
you can't like. There is no point of making a law that is unenforceable,
Yeah.
and the police can't really stop people leaving their houses. I mean, it's just, I don't know, what, 9 million people in London, 60 million. You know, you can't do that. So the whole thing has to be
Yeah.
social compliance. And, you know, the NHS is such a strong way of leveraging it, isn't it? Because we all care about it. We're all incredibly proud of it. You can see how under resourced it is. I just, the irony that the Conservatives are using that to leverage their position won't be
Well, I
lost.
mean,
But anyway, politics aside,
you can, I mean, I did think today they could ratchet up the panic. You know, they could show some pretty harrowing NHS stuff, but they choose not to. I think they're trying to maintain a level of calm. But I have a totally different experience to you now. Like when I was in London, it felt so real time. You know, like that morning or that evening, they would say something. The next morning, I would notice a direct impact on the amount of people I saw or how people were traveling back in Worcester, you know, you hear the talk and you're like, God, yeah, I really should panic. And then the next morning, all the neighbours are waving, but they're giving their 10 meters distance. To me, my next door neighbours are 73 and 71. One of them has respiratory issues and they've put themselves in full isolation, like total. So they'll wave to us, but they'll still talk to us over the neighbour. Do you remember like a Home Improvement where he would talk to the invisible
yeah,
person?
yeah.
That's what I do with our neighbour. He can
Tim the
hear
Tool
us.
Time Taylor, who'd like,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
curiously a community building, but in a way that you can't get close to people, but everyone's remotely being very sweet to each other. Yeah, it's a very unusual time, isn't it?
it is. It is. It's making me realize a few things. So, like, people have stopped being incredibly critical of each other because there's this other threat, and I notice, you know, Twitter and the social platforms have, it's all just gone, and even the project, within the projects, people have got things in a sense of proportion. We're just running a business, and things that were previously quite important and various characters and issues that we would have to manage are, everyone is becoming a lot more sympathetic. I have started to think about what's going to happen when this comes to an end, whether it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 12 weeks or longer. Like, is there, what's going to happen? Are we all going to go absolutely crazy and go, uh, are we all going to go and have a huge party? It's going to be like the Festival of London, and we haven't spent any money for 2 months, and we haven't seen anyone, and we haven't been allowed to touch our friends, are we
Easy,
just going to
Bill.
go into it? Well, there is one thing. I mean, there's going to be the counterpoint, the divorces, the kind of there is going to be a lot of calm reflection. Like, wow, do I really want this? I've had time away from the thing I was doing, and I've realised
I'm
how much I miss my children, or
Yeah,
just,
yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I guess there's never going to be that kind of perfect whistle blow for the final day that it's happened. It's going to be quite a long taper, but I do totally agree with you that there's going to be people are just going to go crackers at some point. But I am one of the things I'm interested about is in like in Venice and stuff. Suddenly, there's all the visible fishes, and suddenly like in all of these places, there's all this wildlife has returned, and suddenly there's a very dramatic sign of what humanity has done. And if you remove us, how much lovelier everything looks. I do wonder if like certain tourist locations will use this will allow the same stampede of people back, or will they try and taper it back? Or I'm fascinated to see if they'll respond in kind, or just be so desperate for money that they'll just be like, God, we've got to let everyone back.
that's really interesting. And maybe there'll be, I'm thinking less tourist destinations because they'll be hungry for hospitality and tourism to start again. But maybe governments will be slightly bolder with their policies. They've just said, you're not allowed to do this, you have to be locked down. And we've all had to kind of do it. And we will have seen huge environmental impact from that. Maybe the kind of tiny creeping percentiles we've seen in the past, maybe it'll give leaders a chance to say, well, hang on, if we just did 20% of
Yeah,
Corona time, we'd hit our Paris promises, 5 years earlier or whatever. Um, the danger is we just go back to our own to what we were doing previously. But I think it's difficult for people not to be like affected emotionally by this time to think.
yeah.
We do quite a lot of stuff. I'm not sure if I mentioned it at business school. Doing,
Ding.
but like everything about opportunity cost, and that is the basis of investment, really. But also our time. By doing this, what am I not doing? Having all loads of opportunity removed. There aren't meetings, there aren't festivals, there aren't parties, there aren't events going on that you should be at. Has created quite a sort of relaxing space where you can be with your family
Yeah,
or do your work, and knowing that that is what the whole of Great Britain or
yeah.
soon the world are doing.
I mean, I guess that one of the beauties of this, of the timing of this, is that we're just rolling into spring. I mean, I don't know how you feel. These last 3 or 4 days have been the best weather that we've had in probably 6 months. Been outside. I mean, there's all these like lovely moments. So I went to the local farm shop, and I got the last eggs, but someone else like, no, no, you have them, and I felt like, wow, I got the last eggs. It was like this amazing, in like World War II films, they hand chocolate out, and you're like, ooh, it really felt
I
like I
don't
was.
have
Look,
eggs. We can't get eggs.
I was like, Beck, I got eggs. And it was like, oh, what should we do with them? It was like all these little things you take for granted are suddenly like, oh, eggs. You got bananas, like with some like rationing World War II nation.
Yeah, but do you know, I don't even think it's that like, it's not, it's a reality now a bit. Like, for the first time, I found myself eating dinner last night thinking, I don't really need to eat all of this. That'll make a lovely lunch tomorrow. It's like, I'm embarrassed to say I've never really thought like that.
Yeah. You're right. I thought about how I eat today for the first time because obviously we both got 4-year-old sons, and he has a very specific needy way of eating. And if you, it's so annoying if you change it. I'm just eating everything around what Max wouldn't eat, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to use that on the bread because he likes that. Okay, I'll have some. I found
Yeah.
some marmalade, and I was like, I'll have some marmalade. Like, it's all these random things. Because I don't want to interrupt his eating pattern because that's when you're like, oh God, now it's serious. Now I've got to contend with a grumpy child.
And how's he dealing with it? Does he, have you explained what's going on?
He could not be happier. He has mum exclusively all day, every day, and me in a room in the house all day, every day. He's walking around like some tyrant. he's the closest
So
I'm ever
just
going
on
to.
a bit of domestic politics, because I want to bring this up.
Here we go.
Are
He's
you
leaned in.
allowed? Are you allowed to like just work in your study and Bex looks after the both of those kids, and that's sort of a fine thing, isn't
I,
it?
I know this isn't the answer you're looking for, Bill, but Beck's incredibly respectful of the study, so make sure I have uninterrupted time. But I'm guessing by your head in your hands that you may not be appreciating that same
We're
freedom.
still working on the dynamic. There's not that sort of reverence that my time's uninterruptible, shall we say?
And I bet she catches you because the amount of good banter that's going around on the WhatsApp groups is outrageous at the moment. So every now and again she comes in, I'm chuckling away with my headphones on, and I'm like, "What? Nothing? Nothing."
Yeah, no, oh no, it's not that. Yeah, no. Yeah, and that's it, and that's that sort of duality where people are having a lot of fun on WhatsApp, and you're trying to decipher this sort of severity of it. Anyway, talking about architecture, which is sort of what this is about. The architectural press have nothing to say. I mean, it is fantastic. I mean, some of our old friends still have like comments on the new OMA building in South Korea. Um, but
It all
basically,
feels
no
so
one has that.
distant, doesn't it? It's like who the hell cares about your comments on that building when it's like the
Yeah,
world is literally changing, the tectonic plates are shifting around us. Suddenly, okay, there's a really tall skyscraper in New York. You're like, I don't care.
so like what is going to happen on the back of this when we all start rolling in? It's like, yeah, we'll start to care again. Do you think people will be bolder? What I hope is that it's going to lead to a sense of like boldness, or actually optimizing a particular revenue stream is not the most
Yeah.
important thing.
I think there's
Um,
going to be like I'm just thinking of my friends who are stuck in flats, tiny flats with no balcony, no nothing, and no green space. I think there's going to be like, if let's say this goes on for 2 or 3 months and you're in London, the idea that you would design flats with no balcony and no access to green space inside the building is just going to
yeah,
be preposterous, isn't it? Like just to have a bit of green space, even if it's like a little bit, but
yeah, yeah.
you've got to have it now. I just don't think you can do it again. I mean, this is some of my friends are literally working on their lap in bed for like what the next 3 weeks.
I know. I know. But do you still like? Do you design to prepare for the next virus and outbreak like that?
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point. Companies won't be able to make huge dividend payments at the expense of keeping sort of disaster funds for this kind of thing. I think also the job market is going to change. A huge amount of people are going to lose their jobs,
yeah,
and you're going to have you're going to have a big population of skilled workers, and that's going to change the dynamic at work as well, isn't it? Especially people who are evolving. And I think hospitality are going to struggle to attract talent again, because everybody's gonna appreciate that you're at the you're it's whimsical whether you're going to last from 1 month to another. Anyway, this is all quite a kind of gloomy prognosis. How do you think everyone else has uh, been getting on? I've noticed I speak to people on the phone again. I haven't spoken to anyone on the phone for about 5 years, and now it's like calling people up. It's
I
brilliant.
I make time for like let's have a Skype call, have a glass of wine instead of going to the pub. I've done that with like a couple of people, and actually it seemed a bit odd. I don't know. I don't know how you feel. If I'd have said to you a month ago, Bill, can we just have a Skype call? You'd be like, are you all right, Ben?
Yeah.
Whereas now it's totally the social norm, and it's actually quite nice. You know, all this social connection has actually been really important. Yeah, I've noticed like everyone's video calling a lot more now, like all the time. I think that maybe that won't go away. I don't know how long it takes to build a habit. Don't they say like a month to build a habit? I think I don't think it's going to be any shorter than a month. I can't imagine London being released. I don't know. You have your own theories on this, but it's going to be a while. So I think we're going to build habits, all these systems. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is the first time I've ever really used video calling. I've had this video camera on my laptop for years and I've never used it. And now suddenly, just this explosion of like, oh yeah, I've got it on my iPad, my phone, my laptop, and
Is
having the
it
advantage.
good? Do you feel like, does it feel the same to you? I mean, we did a Google Hangouts with a lot of my friends, and we sat around and had a few beers. And actually it was really funny, and it was really easy, and it was really good. We had a remote lecture, and admittedly it was this incredible economist talking about the economics of the pandemic with the case of COVID-19, and it's phenomenal. And
Wow.
I'll put the link for that lecture. He's uploaded it as well onto YouTube, talking about what we're facing. And it was electric. It was 2 3 hour lectures, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I'd been very cynical about kind of remote learning. And for me, definitely, I've broken loads of barriers about what I think is a good idea or bad idea, or what has to happen like face to face. And actually, I find like ringing consultants up or clients, it's been quite intimate, the fact that we're all facing this sort of unknown threat. It's a good chance to say, well, look after yourself, and I'll sort of see you on the other side. So,
It is quite disarming, isn't it, when when you see into people's rooms and you see their wives and partners behind, just like, oh, sorry, sorry, oh, your son or child walking into the background. How are you how are you finding LBS remotely now you're not going in? I guess a big part of it is the networking and the kind of um the unknown meetings and the chats that you'd have.
oh, I mean, we. I feel really lucky because we've had most of the year in real life. So I know everybody, and I know all my cohort, and we have quite a lot of fun, and they're all on the WhatsApp. Some people have got very hot under the collar about the fact that last term is going to be delivered remotely. They feel like they're paying the fees, and that's not what they signed up for. But like, this is the reality that we're faced with. It's
Yeah.
nobody's fault. I mean, I've got a huge amount of people getting laid off. There are going to be major economic fallout from this, and they are doing a really good job at finding other ways to add value. For example, this great guy, Paolo Suici, stayed up for 40 hours. He's Italian. He obviously felt like an emotional obligation to contribute to something to the fight, and then put together this incredibly accurate and rational response, factual economic response to the crisis, and delivered it in a rather emotional way. And yes, you don't get to go to California on your week this, or you miss a particular lecture. What you get in return is a real time um, expert unpicking some of the huge challenges
Mm.
which we are facing. People are trying to unpick what this is going to mean, and I can't think of a better place to do it than a great business school who's while we're all trying to make sense of it. So yeah, it's not ideal, but there are also like big wins as well.
I know it's impossible to predict, but I mean, surely this is a a benchmark moment. Economics will never kind of return to where it was. People can say it will, but it's kind of hit the reset switch, and it's everyone's learning on the fly in real time. I mean, people can predict what they think, but this is an unknown, right? Or what do they say? What do the
Uh,
experts say, Bill?
yeah. I mean, it's an unknown. What they say? Are you all right, mate? You're coughing a lot. Have you got a dry cough? Have you
I'm a little bit under the weather, so watch this
have you
space.
got a
Who knows?
temperature?
No, I've got a cold. Every time I get a
Hang
cold, I
on.
think I'm gonna get it.
You should be self-isolating.
I am I got this today, so I have a cold. Who
What about
knows?
the eggs? You're at the farmer's market getting the eggs.
No, that was yesterday.
Mm.
Mm,
You are obeying the guidelines on this, aren't you, Ben?
of course, of course.
Okay.
I don't have
What did the
temperature.
experts say? What did the experts say? I mean, I, I, I don't know really. It's looking like we will enter a major recession from an economics point of view. possibly dropping 15% GDP, and it's going to be a kind of bumpy and slow return after that. So, yeah, the outlook is pretty bleak from that perspective, I would
Oh,
say.
sad
Yeah, the
face.
other thing is there are some there are some people that have been saying, "Oh, well, is this going to be the end of the institutions and mass redistribution of wealth and universal basic income and all of these sort of big sociological sort of left wing ideas?" But actually, Paolo seemed to think it widens inequality because if you homeschool, then kind of well-resourced and well-educated people educate their children better. If you work in professional services, it's easier for you to do it remotely, so you continue to get paid. Whereas if you install light fittings, you can't do that remotely. So the immediate and sort of medium-term ramifications of something like this widen inequality, and that will only sort of create more social discord, which is a jolly contribution from me. Anyway, we've oh man, I'm worried about
I
this
just had a big
cough.
gulp of wine. Shush, stop stressing me. Every time I have a cough or a cold, I'm like, oh, this is it. It's the end. It's the end.
You look a bit red.
That's just the terrible lighting in my Tudor house.
All right. So next week or in a few days' time, we are going to be back in the studio. I'll be there. You'll be dialing in remotely.
Will you?
Um,
Will you? Because this feels like a pretty easy way to keep doing it. And do you know what we can do? I can just invite extra people and they can all fly in.
all right.
I do like the idea that I can just click go.
We might find, like most people will be like, this is easier long term than doing the whole setup. Anyway, I think we should draw it to a conclusion. We haven't thanked loads of the people who have got in
Oh, yeah.
touch, and thank you. And people are all in the same boat as we are, kind of adjusting to the new normal. You can email bill@architectureden.com or
Whoa.
can you hear that?
Did you perfectly mute me to try and undermine my email? For those who couldn't hear, that was ben@architectureden.com.
No, actually, that's my dad ringing. That's the thing with these clever headphones; it all comes into the same place.
Oh, that's why it stopped.
But I think next week we should do all the comments and questions that we've had. Like we had some friends on from Newcastle University last week, and since then we've spoken to people throughout the profession who are keen to come on board, from journalists and architects and consultants and developers. And I think we might do a bit of a kind of romp through some of those people next week. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.